This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and NIL Game Changers.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
All right, let's bring in. He has had a great season. I was so thrilled when he got this spot as the TV voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Josh Getzoff. Josh, welcome back. Great to have you with us.
Steve, great to be on with you again. I hope you're doing well.
Doing great, and congratulations. It's been a great season for you. I'm sure it's been a lot of fun for you to do it, and I'm sure the experience was everything you hoped it would be.
Yeah, it's been a blast. I've been really, fortunate to have the trust of the Penguins to move into this kind of a role, and I didn't take it lightly, and I, just took the approach that what I was doing got me there. So don't change how you are or what you do, and that's kind of what I've continued on the path on, and we've had a blast. It's been different with the different kinds of analysts, which I think is a cool thing. Like it challenges you as a broadcaster to develop and enhance your relationships that you already had with these guys, but also to figure out what their strengths are and showcase them in the best way possible. So I've really enjoyed it, and I feel like I've grown a lot, and I'm excited to continue, in the games ahead.
Now, games ahead, it's interesting. In the last 10 games, only the Dallas Stars have won more. They're 8-2. The Penguins are 7-1-2 over the last 10. But the one was to the Bruins. How difficult was that just based on the current scheme with a couple of play?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the reality of their schedule right now, Steve. I think, even though they were in that stretch, which, as you mentioned, was right up there with one of the best, point streaks in the National Hockey League, the teams they were playing were tough. I mean, they didn't have an easy game in that lot. And it's hard to find the true definition of an easy game in today's NHL, by the way, with how much parity is in the league. But I think that going into Saturday night, I'll be honest with you, I was not all that confident they would win that game. Boston's a tough matchup for them. Boston's a great team, and they still have a lot to play for as far as winning the Atlantic Division, which they can do tonight, ironically, if they help the Penguins out and beat the Capitals in Washington.
Right.
But, as far as that game was concerned, it wasn't so much the result that surprised me. I would actually have been more surprised had the Penguins won it. What surprised me was every team below them winning.
Right,
that's
exactly.
Now makes this a bit of doom and gloom now, and a bit of a complicated situation in that all those teams jumped the Penguins by a point, albeit, but still, if the season ended today with that great lead-in line, those three would be ahead of the Penguins.
Right, and that's the issue at this point because they got Nashville tonight.
Yes.
Sydney Crosby has had some great seasons. Man, I'll tell you, I can't think of a season where I thought he was better. I mean, yeah, he's had great seasons, but as an all-around player, I know you don't take anything he does for granted, but what kind of season has he had in what is allegedly the twilight of his career?
I still think, Steve, if they get into the playoffs, listen, I'm not naive here. I know what Nathan McKinnon's doing. For the record, he's my Hart Trophy winner. Kucherov's second and McDavid's third. If I had a vote, I don't. Sure. We don't get to vote on that in the broadcaster's world. But I think that Sidney Crosby, if the Penguins get in, should be fourth. That's how big of an impact of this season I think he's had. The Hart Trophy is defined as the player who is most responsible for his team's success. I mean, Sidney Crosby's got 90 points for the 8th time in his career. He's moved up the rankings. He's solely a member of the top 10 all-time in the history of the league in scoring, which is, even when we show on our broadcast some of the graphics, I feel like I make a comment every time. I'm looking at the names on these lists, and not that I don't consider Sid at this point to be, top 5, 6 player of all time, but when you see these other names, it really puts into perspective just what he's doing and the rate at which he's producing still at 36 years old, going on 37 this August. So I can't say enough about what he's done. And I think, to be honest, there was a moment where it looked like he was going to, I don't want to say shut it down, but not have this kind of surge that he's had after Jake Guentzel was traded. He looked and acted like an angry man, and an angry man in the sense of a little bit of a sulk, which is understandable. But after a couple games passed, that sulk turned into some anger that was translated into his game on the ice. And I don't think he's really looked back. I mean, he has been the catalyst, as he so often seems to be. But given where the Penguins were and what they are, hopefully on the brink of doing, this would be one of his finest works yet, I believe.
Well, I think, what strikes me is Sidney Crosby, the two-way player. Everybody talks about the assists. They'll talk about the goals. I just think he has been superior defensively to go with it. He doesn't take any part of the game for granted, Josh.
Yes, I think that's 100% true. I mean, you look at, so here's an example of the 200-foot game. When Sid first came into the league, his biggest weakness was the face-off circle.
That's right.
It wasn't that he was bad. He just wasn't as dominant in face-offs as he was at collecting points and, covering all 200 feet of the ice. So what he's done these last handful of seasons, he spends so much time after practice, even now, doing face-offs, doing work with the assistant coaches or facing off against a teammate to just practice that craft. And lo and behold, this year, no player in the NHL has won more face-offs than him. He's won 1,060 entering tonight. That's the most in the National Hockey League this season. His face-off percentage is 58%. If the season ends today, that's his best percentage of his career. Yeah. And he's in year 19. So I look at the stuff that he does that, face-offs are a stat, obviously, that are held on to, but the stuff like that there's still marked measure of improvement year to year that shows you all you need to know about the drive and how much he is hungry to continue to get better. As he said infamously in an interview earlier this year, he loves to learn. He loves to get better. And I don't know how many guys at age 36 with 3 cups, Hart trophies, gold medals, Conn Smythes, you name it, he's got it. And he wants to continue to just be a better player game in and game out, because let's be real, he doesn't have anything more to prove, but he continues to show that he's not slowing down.
All right, so when you look at this roster, we know Jake Guentzel being dealt, that kind of took people aback. Who's been maybe under the radar, not getting enough credit, but has played really well for this team that could be a foundational piece moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I think Michael Bunting's addition, ironically enough, coming over in that Jake Guentzel trade, he's not Jake, and he's not going to give you what Jake gave you, but he gives them a different element that I think will help them in the long run. If they are to get into the playoffs, he's one of those classic examples of a tough guy to play against, and he's annoying. He pisses off everybody on the opposite team. We've seen it every single game, and he scored some timely goals, and he's been really productive for the Penguins. He's a goal away from a 20-goal season, so he's right there in the mix of all this, and I think he's been really, really strong this season since coming over, and I've been impressed with what I've seen from him. But if you're asking for an under-the-radar guy, to me, the emergence of Drew O'Connor this year is one of the greatest things to happen to the Penguins in a long time. Because you and I know, Steve, we've watched this team for a long time. I was thinking about this the other day. You have to really go back to 2016 when Brian Rust and Connor Sherry and Scotty Wilson and Tom Kuhnhackl came in that were developed in the organization guys. Not all drafted, but spent time in the minors, developed in the organization, and homegrown to that point to come up to Pittsburgh and have success. It's been a long time. It's 2024. That's 8 years ago. And Drew O'Connor, to me, is the first to really look like he could be a significantly contributing member of this team going forward with what he's shown this year. I mean, he's already at career highs with 16 goals, 33 points, I beg your pardon. He's been playing with Sidney Crosby a lot more with Jake Guentzel being gone. And unlike his previous opportunities there, Steve, I think Drew has kind of savored this moment and taken advantage of it, and he's stockpiled some points, which is what you need to do when you play with Sid or you play with Gino. And, in the reality of it, hasn't always been the case with O'Connor. He's been a slow-developing player, but he's starting to find his stride. That goal he scored against Boston on Saturday was unbelievable, the shorthanded goal. And that kind of showed just how far he's blossomed as a player. But I look at him, and I think the biggest thing with him, for a team like the Penguins that are always going to be near the cap, he's in the first year of a 2-year deal, and each year he's under $1 million in his cap hit. So right now, that looks like a brilliant contract if he continues to evolve, but he's been huge here lately.
Kris LeTang has gone through, obviously, some health challenges during the course of his career, yet this is a guy that's averaging nearly 25 minutes a game. Nearly 25 minutes a game, and he's a plus 14. When you watch him play, how much smarter is he out there now in terms of understanding the game compared to 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think that's the right way to put it. He's understanding the game more, and that comes with time. And I think maybe more so than any other position, Steve, that comes with being a defenseman. You look at guys in the National Hockey League, a lot of times, not everyone's Cale Makar or Charlie McAvoy and jumps in raw at 22 and excels right away. A lot of these guys, you throw Quinn Hughes in that conversation as well, by the way, but like a lot of these guys, it takes 2 years, 3 years to really figure out what it means to be an NHL defenseman, go through the grind of facing off against these highly skilled forwards every night where every guy's a little bit different, and every team looks and plays a little bit different, and you're kind of learning on the fly as a defenseman to how to adapt and adjust each and every game while also discovering your game with the pace of play at the NHL level and everything that comes with that. So I think LeTang was blessed, and he continues to be because he's an incredible skater. I wish he would shoot the puck more. I do think he has a really underrated shot, but he still has 10 goals this year. He's got 50 points this year. No defenseman's had as many 50-point seasons in the history of the Penguins as Kris LeTang, and that shows you something because Penguins have had guys like Paul Coffey and Sergei Gonchar and Larry Murphy on their blue line. So the fact that he's set this kind of a mark speaks to, one, his longevity, but two, his productivity there. But I agree with you. I think that, as the year has gone on and as the seasons have gone on, he's realized I can't just skate my way out of problems. I need to make decisions that allow me not to need to skate out of problems and figure things out, ahead of time and have an effective decision-making mentality and everything that comes with that. So I do think that he's been a smarter player and a more understanding player of the game, in his later years of his career. But just like Sidney Crosby, he hasn't slowed down. He's had some rough patches this year. We would call it for what it is. But yeah. I think that he's, overall, if you're going to tell me in the beginning of the year, Kris LeTang's going to have a 50-point season and play every single game, you're taking that 100 times out of 100.
All right, so the goaltending part of it. There's been obviously some really good performances and some rough ones. Is that a fair way to evaluate where they've been in front of the net?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you go back to the beginning of this year, I would even say really through the first half of the season, the goaltending wasn't an issue. The Penguins had some of their old warts show up where they weren't getting depth production, they weren't scoring if it wasn't the Crosby line, and their goalies actually kept them in a lot of games, both Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic. But yeah, down the last quarter of the season or so, they've had that inconsistency from Tristan Jarry that's been matched with consistency from Alex Nedeljkovic. Right. And I think that's been really interesting to see because Jarry, we all know, first year of that 5-year deal worth just under $27 million. They hitched their wagon to him, and I'll be honest, he's left a lot to be desired here in key moments this year, and I think that he would probably admit that if asked about it. Alex Nedeljkovic, they took a flyer on him. He won with Mike Vellucci, the assistant coach in Charlotte in the American Hockey League in 2019, won the Calder Cup there as the starting goalie. He also played for Vellucci in junior at Plymouth in the Ontario Hockey League. So there was knowledge there. I would assume that Vellucci had some sort of push to sign him when he was available this offseason. Excuse me. And he looks a lot more like the guy that was a Calder Trophy Rookie of the Year candidate 3 years ago than he does what he's been the last couple years in Detroit, where he won 26 total games in 2 seasons, and this year he's already won 17.
Right.
He's been great. He's going to start again tonight. I think fatigue is always the worry at this point with him, and he did look a little fatigued against Boston on Saturday. But I think when you're talking about the ups and downs of the goaltenders, it's no more amplified than when you say, in the beginning of this year, we had a guy that we just signed to a 5-year deal, and it's the other guy that now will have started 12 consecutive games going into tonight.
And just one quick note. Normally when a guy signs a contract like that, you know what I usually have found? The second year is when they settle down because they're feeling like they have to justify it the first year. I mean, that's just normal.
That's a great point. I think you're probably right. Yeah.
Josh, great work as always. Always a pleasure. Thanks so much. Predators tonight, and appreciate your time.
You got it, Steve. Always enjoy talking hockey with you, and hopefully we can again soon.
Josh Getzoff, the outstanding play-by-play voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins. We will come back and wrap it up in a moment. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
When car repairs get difficult.
Well, I just don't know.
Me neither.
We get good. Sunbury Motors. More than quality new and used cars, Sunbury Motors specializes in complicated auto repair diagnosis. They can handle intricate repairs and even complete auto body with service open Monday through Friday, 7 till 4. And Sunbury Motors has made simple repairs easy. Maintaining your vehicle is necessary. Finding the time to do it is difficult. Welcome to Sunbury Motors Quick Lane. Just walk in or call ahead. Relax in their remodeled waiting room with Wi-Fi, beverages, and snacks. While Sunbury Motors factory-trained techs take care of your oil change, tire alignments, brakes, and inspections. Quick Lane, 6:30 to 6 Monday through Friday, Saturday 6:30 till 2. Sunbury Motors, Ford and Hyundai, North 4th Street, Sunbury. And Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. We take the out of auto repair.
You want your young athlete to get the most out of life and NIL. You need a roadmap, a strategic approach. NIL Game Changers help student athletes earn while they learn in their collegiate journey. Driven by former student athletes and coaches who work as NIL sports agents and content media designers, they'll guide both student and family, starting with high school students looking toward college and those already in college. Get a seasoned team of marketing experts with a background in athletics and coaching. Visit NILGameChangers.org, the ultimate destination for name, image, and likeness opportunities.